John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hello, my name is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. I have been in the credit industry for almost 30 years. I've spent time at FICO, which is the company behind the FICO credit scoring system, and Equifax, which is one of the three generally recognized credit reporting agencies in the United States. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about comparing and contrasting the three major or generally recognized consumer credit reporting agencies in the US. Certainly there are more companies that meet the definition of a consumer reporting agency, LexisNexis, NCTUE. But when we talk about credit reporting agencies, I think generally people gravitate towards these three companies over and over again, primarily because these are the three companies that are the most commonly used sources of information when you go out and apply for a credit card or a mortgage or an auto loan or some sort of benefit that generally justifies the access of a credit report and a credit score. Equifax, my former employer, loved my time there at Equifax. Equifax is based in Atlanta. However, they have offices actually all over the United States and all over the world. Experian is their US headquarters is actually based in Southern California. They too have offices all over the world. TransUnion, which is based in Illinois, they too have offices all over the world. And I guess what this illustrates is that these companies do more than just house credit reports for consumers who live in the United States. TransUnion and Equifax have Canadian operations as well, Equifax Canada and TransUnion Canada as well. So those are some of the differences. Some of the similarities are that they all maintain information on roughly, I'm going to put approximately 220 million consumers in the United States. And so some of you may be thinking, there are a whole lot more than 220 million people who live in the United States, and you are correct. Normally, consumers who are younger than 18 do not have a credit report, and according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, there are around 40 to 50 million people, and that number tends to change over time. 40 to 50 million people that are called credit invisibles, and that's not a John Ulzheimer term, that's a CFPB term. And credit invisibles include consumers who don't have a credit report at any of the credit reporting agencies. And to the extent that consumers have successfully lived off the credit grid, meaning they've never borrowed money from anybody, they've never applied for any sort of a benefit where a credit report would be accessed, then there really is no reason for you to have a credit report. You don't get a credit report just because you're born or just because you turn 18. You actually have to do things that lead to information being furnished to these three companies, which then creates information in their system for you. But to the extent you've lived off the credit grid, then you're not going to be one of the 220 million consumers. Oh, and by the way, good luck getting a mortgage because you're not going to be able to get one. These companies do not share information. They have three separate and unique databases. And so really there are about 660 million consumer credit reports in circulation at any given time, divided fairly equally across the big three. They do not share information. Most companies that furnish information to these companies, and there are about 11,000 of them, will furnish information to all of them. However, there is no rule that occurs. The system is entirely voluntary. So you may have some of these 11,000 furnishers that may only report to Experian and not Equifax or TransUnion, or any combination of the three. They may report to TransUnion but not Equifax or Experian. It's entirely up to the furnisher, as the system is entirely voluntary. So you may have information about you at one credit bureau that is not with the other two. Even if you do have identical credit reports as far as the furnishers goes, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the same credit reports across all three, because lender A may update TransUnion at a different time than they update Experian and Equifax. And so the information may be different, even though it's being provided by the same company, simply because of the timing. There are some scenarios whereby the credit reporting agencies do share information, and I'll give you one of them. Number one is if you place a fraud alert on one of your credit reports, whatever bureau received your fraud alert has to contact the other two. So in that respect, they do share information. Another one that's fairly common is if you file a dispute with one of these 11,000 furnishers about the accuracy of information that is appearing on your 3 credit reports, and a change is made, meaning let's say a late payment is removed or a balance is modified or the account in its entirety is deleted, then the furnisher has to share that information with all 3. So in that respect, even though it's the furnisher sharing the information, the credit bureaus are essentially acting upon the same orders from the furnishing party. But normally the information is completely independent and they don't share information because they're not the same company. They're 3. Think Pepsi and Coke, or Ford and Chevrolet. They're in the same industry, but they're definitely competitors, and there's only some scenarios where they are going to share information. Another one is if you place a security freeze, and this is an example of where they don't share information. If you place a security freeze, for example, on your TransUnion credit report, it's not automatically going to apply at Equifax and Experian. You have to place the security freeze independently at all 3. So in that respect, they don't share information. I put this on here not because it's an obvious thing, but you'd be surprised how many people think the credit bureaus are owned by a government or run by the government. And I think the reason that some people may think that is because they hear the word bureau. And I think the assumption is that, well, anything called a bureau has to be run by the government, but that's not the case. Equifax is publicly owned. You can own shares of Equifax. TransUnion is publicly owned. You can own shares of TransUnion. And Experian is publicly traded in the UK. So these companies are definitely not owned by the US government or by any government entity. So if you have any questions about credit reporting agencies, drop them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to get to them. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.